Farm equipment on steroids.
Golf cart with big wheels. It's an '06 Yamaha Rhino. It's 4x4, off-road vehicle.
You ever roll it?
No, never rolled it. Came close, but never rolled it.
The off-road deal that ended in a meltdown. It started with horsepower and high hopes. A man rolled into the shop with a tricked-out 2006 Yamaha Rhino, an off-road beast dressed up like it was headed to war, with custom rims, extended A-arms, high-performance shocks, a roll cage, and even a mount for your music. It was farm equipment on steroids. Rick was immediately intrigued. He had a soft spot for desert rides and the stories they carried. This one looked like it had survived battles in the Mojave.
I love this Rhino because it just goes anywhere. Well, this vehicle's brought me hundreds of hours of pleasure, but it's not real fast. It goes about maybe 40 miles an hour, and I'm a speed freak. I need to go faster, so I'm looking to upgrade to something a little bit better. This thing's pretty badass. Custom rims, it's got extended A-arms, Fox shocks, HID headlight.
The seller wanted $8,000 for it. Rick thought that was a bit steep, especially for something that, no matter how flashy, wasn't exactly flying off the shelves anymore. It was still cool, sure, but the off-road scene had moved on. After a bit of back and forth and maybe a nod to the seller's enthusiasm, Rick caved. They settled at a reasonable price. Rick couldn't believe he was about to own a Rhino.
Big question. What do you want for it?
Well, I paid $9,000 for it.
Okay.
So I'm looking probably around 8.
Okay. I'll give you $6,000 for it.
Oh, come on, man. It's got a lot of parts in it, like I said, the roll bar, the bumpers. I mean, the bumper was almost $500.
I know it's got all the custom parts on it. That's the problem with these things. No matter how bad they're tricked out, they're not nearly as cool as they were 2-3 years ago.
But what started as a win quickly turned into a disaster. Rick, still buzzing with adrenaline, asked Corey to take the Rhino home so he could test it out after work. Corey, of course, brought Chumlee along. That's when everything went off the rails, literally. Not 5 minutes into the joyride, the engine screamed, sputtered, and flat out died. No warning, no mercy. Just a sudden, deafening silence where horsepower once roared.
Today, my dad bought a really cool off-road Rhino and asked me to take it to his house. So I grabbed Chum and we're gonna do that, eventually.
Woo! Yeah!
The panic set in fast. Corey freaked out. Chumlee tried to joke his way out of it, but the damage was done. The Rhino was toast, and worse, it had barely left the parking lot. Now, they were stuck with a busted machine and had no clue how to fix it. The idea of calling Rick, not an option. Not unless they wanted to feel the full weight of his fury.
I won't start at all. I have no idea what's wrong with this thing. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a spark plug, a fuel line. It could be something really simple. All I know right now is this thing's not working.
Maybe we should call Rick.
Instead, they scrambled. There were tow trucks, phone calls, and a desperate attempt to clean up the mess before Rick got home. Johnny, the shop's go-to fixer, was their only hope, and somehow, miraculously, he got the thing running again, just barely.
Did it just stop, or sputtered, or did it slow down?
It just stopped.
Just stopped altogether. Man.
The temperature light came on and everything else.
See this. Let me take a look over here.
You gotta be able to get this done, Johnny, please.
Dude, I don't know what you guys did to this thing, man, but it's filthy.
Please tell me you can fix it.
But it wasn't over. Corey was still sweating bullets. The Rhino was coated in dust and grime, and the whole debacle felt like a high school screw-up, except this time, detention would come with a $7,000 invoice and one very pissed-off dad. Rick never did find out, at least not right away. But if he had walked in mid-chaos, heads might have rolled.
Led Zeppelin 1 signed by the full band.
By the full band, I only see one.
Jimmy Page signed the front, and on the rear, John Bonham, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones.
That's pretty amazing. I've never seen, Led Zeppelin sign an entire album.
The Led Zeppelin autograph debacle that left, Rick shaking his head. It's one thing to bring in a signed album. It's another to walk into the shop with what might be the holy grail of rock memorabilia, a Led Zeppelin album supposedly signed by all 4 original band members. The seller claimed it was the real deal, with signatures from Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Bonham, and John Paul Jones. That alone was enough to make Rick pause. These guys weren't just legends, they were untouchable icons of rock, and full band signed memorabilia, almost unheard of. Rick had seen a lot, but this was rare.
When Led Zeppelin came around, this band rocked. It was like Take No Prisoners. There's probably 24 authentic signed Led Zeppelin albums in existence, so I'm looking for $22,000.
At first glance, the album had potential. The The seller explained its backstory, how a woman had gotten the signatures backstage in Liverpool in 1971 after the band's roadies invited her behind the scenes. It sounded like the kind of story you want to believe. But Rick's gut was already picking at a few things. The most glaring issue? Jimmy Page's autograph was on the front of the album, while the rest were signed on the back. That wasn't typical, and while Rick knew Page had a reputation for being eccentric, even territorial about his music, he also knew that collectors care about consistency. If the signatures weren't together, it could impact both presentation and price.
So where did you get this?
A private collection.
Okay.
A young lady, when they played Liverpool Stadium, 1971, the band was notorious for having ladies around, and the roadies saw them. They invited them backstage after the show. She got the autographs.
Hey, this is really amazing.
Rick was clearly excited still. This was too big to guess. Rick called in an expert, someone with decades of experience analyzing rock memorabilia. The evaluation was thorough. Under magnification, the ink checked out, oxidized, live, and aged properly. The signatures flowed naturally, especially Robert Plant's and Bonham's. From a technical standpoint, everything lined up. The expert confirmed it was real, no doubt.
The big thing is, are they real, and what's your opinion on what it's worth?
Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do, Rick, is look at it under magnification, right there, ballpoint pen. And you take a look right here, oxidized, it's a little older, you know, you could tell. Nice aged ink. So we know we've got live ink on here. That's a great sign.
But then came the punch to the gut, the value. Despite its authenticity, the expert estimated the album was worth between $10,000 and $12,000. That was a sharp contrast to the seller's asking price of $22,000. The reason? Presentation. Having the signatures split across the album made it far less desirable for display. Serious collectors want uniformity. They want to frame the thing and show it off, not explain why one signature is off doing its own thing on the cover.
The only thing that kind of bugs me a little bit is the one signature on front and the other guy's on back. But with that said, I put this value right at about $10,000 to $12,000.
Okay.
The seller didn't take the news well. He insisted the placement added character and that Page's solo autograph on the front made the piece even more unique. Rick, however, wasn't buying that logic. He made a generous offer, given the layout issue, but the seller pushed back.
Way off. And no, with all due respect,
absolutely.
You know, I understand you're a signature person.
Yeah.
You're not really a praiser.
I actually take that.
Okay.
No, I actually see. I've been doing this for about 25 years, so I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of autographs and
I totally
material.
understand. I'm not trying to.
And I get where you're coming from too, but at the same time, I've seen plenty of these pieces. Yeah, I've done a lot of research on these through the years.
Okay, I respect your opinion, but you know, we all have opinions.
The gap was too wide. Rick didn't budge. For him, it wasn't about winning the deal. It was about what the piece was actually worth on the market. He'd seen countless people overestimate sentimental value, and this was no different.
I would give you $8,000 for it.
Sorry, we're, you know, again, miles apart on this. You know,
I mean, what's your best price on it?
my best price would be $17,500. This is history.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go $8,500, but...
I'm sorry, you know,
Okay.
I appreciate the offer.
Okay, well, if you change your mind, come back. The offer's open. Have a nice day. Thanks for coming in.
You too. Thank you.
The seller left, visibly annoyed. Rick has seen this a lot. It's another case of rock nostalgia clouding reality. The item was cool, no doubt about it. But cool didn't always equal cash, and Rick wasn't in the business of buying stories.
Hey, how's it going? Those are some fancy boots.
Thank you very much.
And that's a fancy piece of wood. We have a pistol grown into a tree.
We have a pistol grown into a tree.
The tree-grown pistol that left Rick speechless. Every once in a while, something so bizarre comes through the shop that even Rick, who's seen just about everything, is left absolutely stunned. This time, it wasn't gold, silver, or some ancient relic. It was a Civil War-era pistol, embedded inside a chunk of wood. Not beside it, not nailed to it, literally grown into it, like nature had swallowed it whole.
I found this piece at an Old West collectibles auction. I think it's worth more than money to someone that wants it because you can sit around and talk about it and wonder what it's about. I'm gonna ask $18,000 or $20,000 for it.
From the moment the piece hit the counter, Rick was hooked. This wasn't just a gun. It was a conversation starter, a relic with mystery oozing from every inch of it. The seller had picked it up at an Old West collectibles auction and was asking a cool $18,000, clearly banking on the oddity factor to drive up the price. Rick wasn't so sure. Was it worth that much? Who could say? One thing was clear. It was one of a kind.
If you're in the Civil War, this was a great thing to have. These things weren't issued to you. You had to go get one.
you were issued a muzzle-loaded rifle, okay? You know, you got one shot and it's done. I mean, if you were carrying around 2 of these, you got
As Rick inspected the artifact, things only got weirder. The gun wasn't just stuck in the wood, it was practically part of it. Bark had grown over the trigger guard and had curled around the grip. It looked like the forest had tried to reclaim the weapon, turning it into a bizarre natural sculpture. Then came the kicker. The pistol was loaded. Yes, somehow, through the passage of time, exposure to the elements, and who knows how many decades buried or forgotten, there was still a bullet in the chamber.
That one's empty. Can I take it out of this?
You know, I've never taken it out.
Ooh, that's neat how it grew right into the barrel. And yeah, that's loaded. The one in the chamber you're never gonna be able to figure out.
Rick, both fascinated and cautious, brought in a weapons expert, and that's when things really took a turn. The expert confirmed what Rick suspected. The gun was a Remington New Model Army, one of the most popular sidearms used during the Civil War. They were rugged, reliable, and favored by Union soldiers. But this one, it was in a class of its own, not because of its condition, far from it, but because of the story it carried. Or rather, the story it hinted at but could never fully tell.
It's actually loaded.
Man, this is crazy. How did this get here? Nobody's gonna ever know, right?
No, no one's gonna know.
Well, there's a piece of iron sticking out the end over here.
Wait a minute, what's to come out? That's weird, I just would love to, it sounds like it's in the barrel.
So maybe the guy was cleaning his gun when this all happened?
How did it end up in a tree? Who left it there? Was it lost in battle? Forgotten in a panic? Did the owner survive? Questions swirled around the shop like smoke, but there were no answers, just a haunting, silent piece of history that had been literally absorbed by time.
And I'm gonna tell you something, this is the one time when you're gonna ask me what it's worth that I'm gonna tell you, I don't know. There's nothing else like it. It's one of a kind, okay? So you're not buying a Remington here. You're buying the chance to talk about this guy. It's just...
Rick was clearly tempted. He even admitted it was one of those rare finds he wouldn't resell. He wanted it for himself, for the story, for the sheer strangeness of it. He made an offer. That was the price of owning not just a gun, but a mystery. The seller wasn't biting.
This is one of those few things that I would buy off a customer that I would not put it in my showcase. I'd bring it home. And because I really want this for myself. I think this is the greatest thing in the world to pull out at a cocktail party with your friends and talk about it. I'd give you $4,000 for it.
No.
I mean, what would you take?
And so, with a bit of regret and a whole lot of awe, Rick let it walk. He hated to see it leave the shop, but sometimes the cool factor and the asking price just don't line up. Still, something about the piece lingered. This was a once-in-a-lifetime encounter with an artifact too strange to forget. The $13,000 gamble that blew up in Rick's face.
I have a book signed by Sholess Joe Jackson.
Oh, it's actually signed by.
Right.
This is absolutely incredible.
Rick Harrison had seen all kinds of wild items walk through the doors of the gold and silver pawn shop, but nothing grabbed his attention quite like the claim of a Sholess Joe Jackson signature. When a man strolled in with a vintage book supposedly signed by one of the rarest autographs in sports history, Rick didn't even blink. He pounced. Sholess Joe Jackson, the baseball legend whose name had been dragged through the mud after the infamous 1919 Black Sox scandal, was so reclusive and uneducated that even writing his own name was a stretch. That made any authentic signature from him nearly priceless.
It seems to be a collaboration of sports stories. The first one is about Sholess Joe, but it seems to be about the darker side of sport.
Yeah, the story is that
the man said he'd found the book in a stack during a foreclosure cleanup, and the signature, if real, could be worth a small fortune. Rick knew the story well. Sholess Joe had been such a legend that Babe Ruth had copied his swing, fans had romanticized his fall from grace, and memorabilia collectors treated his name like gold. But what Rick also knew was that his signature was one of the most forged in the sports world. Fewer than a dozen authentic examples existed. That didn't stop him.
Babe Ruth actually copied his style. If it wasn't for the scandal, there was no doubt that he would make it to the Hall of Fame. So you got the signature certified.
When I found the book, I saw what appeared to be two signatures. The first one...
Without Without calling in his book expert, without seeking any second opinions, Rick decided to trust his gut. Maybe it was the excitement. Maybe it was the rush of the gamble. Maybe it was just the feeling that this could be the one. He negotiated the price down from $30,000 to less than half, betting that the signature was real and that the book would double in value, if not more. It was one of those impulsive buys, the kind that can make or break a pawn boss.
So, I'll take a shot at 10 grand.
It's just not a signature. It's on a book about the dark side of sports. I mean, that has to bring something to the table.
I'll give you 11.
The celebration didn't last long. When the staff found out what Rick had done, the air turned thick with tension. They were stunned, not because he took the risk, but because he hadn't brought in the expert they always relied on. His son Corey was quick to point out the obvious. Rick wasn't a book expert. Spending that kind of money without a proper check? It was reckless. Even Chumlee, usually laid back, raised an eyebrow. No one was impressed. And Rick? He shrugged off the heat and made his way to Rebecca, the shop's go-to book expert, hoping his instincts were right.
I thought he couldn't even write.
He barely knew how to write his name.
How much you pay for that?
$13,000.
Is that a good deal?
I think so. I think I'll at least double my money.
Hey, Rick, you got a COA on it?
Rebecca didn't need long. One glance, and she knew the book itself was worthless. Just a compilation of reprinted essays. $50 tops. The only thing that could save this deal was the signature. Rick watched, hopeful as she studied the ink and compared it to known samples. At first, it looked promising, but then she saw the signs. The writing was too neat. The strokes didn't match the shaky hand of an illiterate man. It felt practiced, intentional, fake.
Afternoon, and so it's a reprint from that. So as far as the book goes, so there are some differences here.
Her verdict was crushing. In her opinion, the signature wasn't real, not even close. Just like that, Rick's $13,000 gamble crumbled in front of him. No glory, no payoff, just the sickening feeling of getting burned in his own shop. The $100K gospel guitar that sparked a holy meltdown.
I'm assuming that's a guitar.
Not just any guitar. This is Sammy Mosley's personal blue gospel guitar prototype.
A Mosite.
It started like any other day on the floor, until a man strolled in carrying what looked like just another vintage guitar case. But inside was something that instantly turned heads. A sleek blue electric guitar with the name Mosite gleaming on the headstock. The man claimed it was no ordinary guitar. It was Sammy Mosley's personal prototype, built with violin joints and hand-wound pickups, a gospel guitar made by the founder himself, and supposedly one of a kind.
Well, I got it directly from Sammy Mosley.
Really? That's really, really cool. I know a little bit about him. I know that he started off repairing guitars and then actually started making guitars. So why is it a prototype?
Rick was intrigued. Sammy Mosley was a legend in the world of guitars, someone who transitioned from humble repairs to building instruments for some of the biggest names in music. This prototype, the man insisted, was built after Mosley was inspired by the tonal resonance of flamenco guitars he saw at a European convention. Rick listened, nodding as the seller described how Mosley had made everything himself. The pickguards, the volume plate, the entire design, all steeped in gospel spirit. And to top it off, the man claimed to have owned the guitar for over 4 decades, straight from Sammy's hands to his own.
So people like Mosley really started experimenting with new sounds.
I mean, it looks brand new. I mean, there's one little chip here, but there's no belt buckle marks on it. That's definitely cool.
Things got serious when the man dropped the number, $100,000. Rick didn't flinch, but he also didn't bite. That kind of money wasn't going to change hands without someone else taking a closer look. So he called in Jesse, a trusted guitar expert who practically geeked out over the Mosite brand. He examined the parts, the tailpiece, the pickups, the serial number. Everything pointed to the late 60s, and the model matched the legendary gospel prototype. So far, so good.
I know this is not an auction, but realistically, I'd take $100,000 for it.
Quite frankly, that sounds expensive. Let me give a buddy of mine a call. Deals in rare guitars all the time.
Great, I welcome that. However,
but then came the number that broke the spell. Jesse didn't deny that it was rare. He didn't say it wasn't beautiful, but based on the current market, he pegged its real value way below what the seller was asking. But that's when everything flipped. The seller, who had held onto the guitar for over 40 years, looked stunned. He fired back, saying it had been appraised at $100,000 way back in the 90s, and that it had only gone up in value since. He even mentioned it had been insured for that amount.
That was very well documented and played guitar. Went for right around $35,000, $40,000 in the guitar market of today.
In the end, what mattered was what someone was actually willing to pay. And according to Jesse, even Les Paul prototypes hadn't fetched the kind of money this man was demanding. That was the final blow. The seller stood his ground, insisting that the experts were wrong and that an auction house would easily get him $200,000. Rick, completely over it, shut down the negotiation and sent him packing. No deal, just frustration on both sides.
To be honest with you, I'm just kind of glad I got out of there without a black eye.
Can't know what I know about it after 44 years.
Okay. He just told us that Les Paul's prototypes went for less money than you're asking.
It's not only rare, but it's also beautiful.
As the man walked out, muttering about missed opportunities, Rick leaned back, relieved it was over. The seller? He walked away, convinced Rick had just passed on the guitar deal of a lifetime. The Dunhill clock lighter that tested Rick's patience.
Clock lighter that I found at my grandfather's house.
Every lighter should have a clock on it. You can really burn some time with.
Today, something strange comes through the doors of the gold and silver pawn shop, something that's just rare enough to catch Rick's attention, but just damaged enough to push him to the edge. That's exactly what happened when a man walked in with what looked like an old, beat-up table lighter, except this one had a clock built into it.
So do you know anything about it?
I don't know a whole lot about it at all, no.
This is neat. This is a 1930s Dunhill lighter. Dunhill's an English company, but I believe their lighters were made in Switzerland. Yeah, Switzerland. And in the 1930s, we had a depression going on. Not a lot of these were sold, and you had to be very well off to get one.
Rick was intrigued. The seller claimed it was from his great-grandfather's collection, something he'd found lying around and decided to cash in on. He didn't know much about it, just that it looked cool and old, and he wanted $2,000 for it. That alone was enough to raise eyebrows. But when Rick took a closer look, he realized this wasn't just some novelty item. It was a 1930s Dunhill clock lighter, a rare piece made during the Great Depression, back when only the wealthiest could afford one.
Of course, now they make a gold lighter that sells for over 13 grand.
Pretty good idea. Something like MacGyver would have.
It was made in the 1930s.
Oh, James Bond.
Let's see if the clock works.
Historically, Dunhill has been a name tied to elegance and wealth, producing luxury goods for over a century. Their lighters, especially unique ones like this, were considered status symbols. The fact that this one still worked after nearly 80 years was nothing short of impressive. Even in average condition, a basic Dunhill lighter could fetch a few $1,000s. Add in the working clock, and it had serious potential. But there was a problem, a big one.
They go for like $2,500. Okay, now we have this problem right here. It's beat to hell. That might just look like a little dent back there, but it's a really big issue. It's worth like $1,500 in this condition.
This lighter had been beat to hell. What might have looked like a minor dent to the untrained eye was actually a major flaw in the world of collectibles. And for someone like Rick, who's seen pristine Dunhills walk through his doors before, the damage was a deal breaker. In mint condition, it might have been worth more than the seller's asking price. In its current state, more like $1,500 at best. Still, the seller wouldn't budge. He stuck to his guns, hoping for $2,000. Rick, already irritated, shot back with a firm offer.
I was looking $2 grand.
$2 grand's not gonna happen. It's more like $1,000.
Oh, we just said it was $1,500.
You go open up your own store and, hire some employees, do a little advertising, sell it in your store for $1,500.
Boy, I really would like to get 12 for it. I disagree with you. The dent just gives it character.
He explained the reality of running a business, overhead, staff, margins. The seller pushed again, asking for $1,200, claiming the damage gave it character. Eventually, Rick threw out a final number, not a penny more, and he meant it. The seller knew the clock was ticking, literally, and agreed. However, as he walked off to finalize the deal, he admitted that Rick came off as a bit of a hard ass. The truth? Rick was just being real. In his world, condition is everything and sentiment doesn't pay the bills.